The truth was that went in to have her lungs drained and they gave her Demerol and she coded because she had way too much pain medicine in her system. And they had to use Narcan twice to bring her back. And she had been, without oxygen to her brain for a long time. So by the time they brought her back, she had suffered quite a bit of brain damage. And they told us, she still has time left, but she needs to spend it in a facility. You guys can no longer take care of her. So you have two choices. You can let her go to a facility or you can let her pass peacefully here in the hospital. And that was a really easy decision. There was going to be no quality of life for her.
Yeah.
So we made that decision, and my aunt felt like my dad had been drugging her.
This is Rock Bottom with Ryan. No sugarcoating, no filters. The pain, the chaos, the truth. No bullshit. Just recovery.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom with Ryan. Just want to let you know that this episode is once again brought to you by Sober Strong Apparel. Sober Strong Apparel isn't just lifestyle wear, it's battle gear. Heavyweight tees, hoodies, and gear for ones who draw a hard line. Clean, sober, no compromise. We rep sobriety like a badge of honor. And every piece you throw on says you're a part of the crew that doesn't back down. Every order fuels recovery with 10% donated to treatment facilities. So you can get amazing hoodies, heavyweight tees like this, hats, banners. I mean, a little bit of everything. It's all incredible quality. I love what the clothing stands for. It's incredible stuff. Don't forget to use the code ROCKBOTTOM, all one word, capital letters, for 15% off. It used to be 10%, now it's 15% off. If you have anybody in your life that is sober curious, in treatment, long-term sobriety, anything, anybody who supports the recovery movement in any way, shape, and form, definitely have them check out SoberStrongApparel.com. Not only is it for a good cause, but it is good-looking clothing, great style, great quality. I just really like representing this brand and love what they stand for. Also, if you're new to watching the show or have been watching the show, don't hesitate to click subscribe on YouTube or Spotify or both. That really helps out the show. Let's get the word out there as much as possible. Thank you for all the support from all of you and really appreciate it. And don't hesitate to reach out and message me with any questions. Thank you so much. Enjoy this episode. All right. Welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom with Ryan. I'm here today with Allie Clark. Allie, how you doing?
Awesome. How are you, Ryan?
Good. Really happy to have you here. Been looking forward to doing this interview and get to know you and hear a lot about what you're doing today as trauma-informed sober coach. But first and foremost, as you know, this is a recovery-related podcast. So if you have a sober date, what is it and where you're from and what were your drink or drug of choice and all that stuff?
Okay, so my sober date is June 23rd, 2017. I'm coming up on 9 years. So excited. Thank you. Thank you. And congratulations to you on 18 months.
Thank you. Thank you.
Huge.
I
Big deal.
Huge deal. Yeah, I know. I'm like, that sounded like an eternity when I first heard about somebody getting 18 months. I'm like, yeah, no.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what a recovery coach told me early on? When you hit 18 months, you're out of the red zone.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing I thought when I saw your post the other day. I was like, he's out of the red zone.
Out of that tough period. Yeah, now time starts to go by a little faster.
Thank God, right? So I'm from Kansas City, born and raised here, still live here just outside of Kansas City on the Kansas side. And, I loved wine and Xanax. I mean, started with wine and that was great. And then when I added Xanax on top, million times better.
Yeah. I had my issues with Xanax for quite a while. I was prescribed it and then wasn't prescribed it because I was taking it, abusing it. And then I would just buy it, through other people and stuff. And that became a part of my drinking was Xanax. And that was my way to sleep at night too. So totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And mine was prescribed too. And I never ran out of my prescription, which was crazy. And I used a lot of it. So there's a piece to that story we'll get into.
Okay.
I had no idea just how addictive Xanax was.
Yeah. And the withdrawals, horrible. Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah. No, I know they're dangerous too. So I totally want to hear more about that as well. So you're from Kansas City, June 23rd, July 7th, or 2017, and Xanax and wine. Okay. So I was very familiar with both of those. So I'm interested in hearing a lot about that. Can you take me back a little bit to what life was like growing up before using? Like, what was your family dynamic and kind of what was life like before you picked up a drug or alcohol the first time?
Definitely. Okay, so from the outside looking in, everything looked great. My parents were married, both college educated. They had master's degrees. We had a nice house. I went to Catholic school all my life, and we went to church every Sunday. We belonged to the country club. Like everything looked really good. But behind closed doors, it was a different story. So, which was really confusing growing up because I knew people thought, what a great little family. And I didn't feel like I was growing up in this great little family. And there's reasons why, and I've come to understand that now because of trauma therapy and gaining language around it. I didn't understand it at the time. I just felt like something's wrong here. And we had these unspoken rules in our family, but they were, you had to abide by them. And I don't think that they're probably that uncommon, but they're definitely dysfunctional. Probably one of the number one rules was we didn't talk about anything. So if anything came up, we shoved it under the rug, pretended like nothing happened. And then it was really, really important to be loyal to our family and to protect the family's reputation. So if anything did come up and kind of get out to other people, it was important to cover that up and or lie. Totally okay in our family to lie to protect the family's reputation, which
Oh,
as a little Catholic girl growing up, I was like, well, I think I'm not supposed to be lying. But in my family, that's safety. And that was so confusing. So the other thing is we did not air our dirty laundry. So me being on here today, this is awesome because I get to break some generational patterns and cycles. And it's still scary. Still, there's this little girl inside me that's like, is it really okay to talk about this? Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people growing up in that like don't ask, don't tell type of household and stuff, and it affects you for life, you know. So it's a tough one. So coming on a podcast and talking about some personal things, I can see why that would be really tough.
And it's so healing. It's so good for me to be able to do this because it not only helps me, but I know hearing my story, somebody else is going to be helped too. And
Yeah.
that's what really motivates me to keep going. So, one of our other rules, don't ask for help. That would allude to some kind of problem. So, there was a lot of self sufficiency and independence. And then this one is hysterical, and I still struggle with this one today. You had to look good. That way, nobody could see that anything was going on. So this was not only with my appearance, but also on paper. So I was a super high achiever, straight A student. I was a really good kid. I didn't get in trouble. So I didn't really drink a ton until my senior year, right? Like it was pretty straight edge.
Yeah, a lot of pressure to like stay like well behaved and get the perfect grades and have the perfect friends from like perfect households as well, and like all these things to protect your reputation and family's reputation.
Exactly. You nailed it.
Yeah,
And
I
I think I
relate.
was blow drying my hair in probably fourth grade, right? I mean, the pressure was on. You really had to have this pretty bow wrapped around our shit show. So I followed suit. And I've learned this is awesome because, again, the language piece is so huge for my brain. I would fawn, right? Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Freeze and fawn were kind of my go tos to survive. So I just fell in line and I complied. And that dysfunction in that system, I just want to be so compassionate. It didn't start with my parents. These are generational patterns that have been passed down for who knows how long. So, it's not about blame or shame or anything like that. It's just they were doing what they knew. And my hope is that I can now, thanks to sobriety and all this trauma work I've done, start to do things differently for myself and my kids. Because it turns out breaking these generational patterns is super hard. As a
Yeah,
kid, I remember being like, I'm going to do it different when I grow up.
I know.
Straight into it.
And most people talk about it like for like standard abuse or like control or just dysfunction in the household and stuff, and trying to break those obvious things. But not a lot of people talk about what you're discussing, just like maintaining secrecy and trying to maintain an image and all those kind of like things that are actually pretty dark. And I recall having friends growing up, because I went to like some private schools when I was younger and stuff, and I had friends that had, came from really wealthy, like good families, that on the outside, they seemed very perfect and happy, but then getting to know the kids when they'd come over to my house and like vent and stuff, and I would just be like, wow, it's not as perfect as it seems. And so there's like different sets of generational trauma that needs to be broken, but this type does not get talked about enough. So I appreciate you bringing it up.
I mean, it's my story. And
Yeah.
you know what I've also come to realize is, again, this trauma work that I did, which was so hugely helpful, there's names for it. And so my dad was a workaholic. He was really not home. And my mom was a narcissist. And narcissism, you said it perfectly, it's really dark. And there's a tremendous amount of psychological and emotional abuse around that, there's no bruises.
Yeah, there's no
So
apology, nobody apologizing to you, nobody taking accountability. Narcissism is scary, so
it's so scary.
yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry you had to grow up around that, and like I said, it's hard to break that generational thing because because that could turn on to you being that way later in life too, just because you grew up with that too. So
Exactly. This breaking of the patterns has been no joke.
yeah, no, I understand. So growing up, obviously had some pros, but obviously there were a lot of like cons too, because you felt like you had to maintain an image and be somebody that you weren't a lot of the time, and you couldn't really fully be your authentic self. So I assume that was difficult.
Very.
And you got through high school, and then when did you pick up your first drink or start to get into that side?
Okay, so my senior year is the first time I really went for it with drinking. And you know what? I was not going to drink that night. I was the DD. I was the good girl that was happy to make sure everybody got home safely. My friend Ben, he said, "You please take a turn. It's your turn. I'll drive tonight." And we went out to Lawrence, Kansas for a concert, and I thought, "You know what? Why not? Let's do it." So I started out with some beer, and everything changed. I went from an introvert to an extrovert. I went from serious to playful. I went from, wound tight to fun.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I loved it. And then I don't remember the rest of the night. And I finally came to in the front of my mom's minivan. She had this white Dodge Caravan with maroon interior, cloth. And I turned to Ben, who's home, and I said, I don't, and then got sick everywhere. It was horrible. And he promised me he'd make sure, I didn't get sick and everything would be okay. And I called him the next day. So, listen, he got my parents' car cleaned up. He got me in past him and everything because he knew we were good friends.
Yeah.
He knew, like, right, she can't get in trouble or this is going
Yeah.
to be really bad. So he somehow got me in. And the next day I called him. I said, Ben, you promised me everything would be okay. He said, I tried to help you. I told you to stop at the beer and you moved on to Everclear. And when I told you to stop it, you said, I got this.
Oh,
And I thought, oh my God,
clear for the first time getting, yeah, that's a fun.
it was horrible. But I loved the beginning. So really from the very beginning, right, I was a blackout drinker. You know, I wanted to go all in. And remember, I'm a high achiever.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely got to take that into drinking too.
So then I kind of promised myself, I'm not going to do this again. One, it felt horrible and I did not understand. I said, I get it. The beginning was fun, but this isn't really fun.
Hangover and everything, and the regret or the confusion from blackout and all that.
I was pretty scared
Yeah.
because, it was a pretty extreme first experience. And I just said, I'm good. I'm not going to do this again. And my friend Ben said, no, 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 you can learn. So he kind of coached me. And by the time we got to senior spring break, I felt ready because I had these rules, you know, count your drinks, have water between the drinks, make sure you eat enough, all kinds of things. And so from the very beginning, it was you got to keep it under control so you don't get sick. And it worked. I went on senior spring break and, partied every night of that cruise and I did it. I crushed it. I thought, all right, I figured it out. Went on to college. I went to St. Louis University and I joined a sorority. And sororities are great. There's a lot of fun stuff that you do, sisterhood and philanthropy, and it's straight up a drinking club.
Yeah. I joined a fraternity and I totally remember.
So, I did do your standard college binge drinking with the sorority stuff, and it didn't seem anything out of the norm, and my rules totally worked. It was great. I'd go out, I'd have fun. I was never out of control.
And still pulled grades and everything and made the class. Good.
Yes, just still a straight A student, joining the leadership in the sorority, all the things that were important to my family were happening. Plus, I could manage my drinking. And that worked freshman and sophomore year. And then things changed. The summer between my sophomore and my junior year, my mom was diagnosed with metastatic kidney cancer. And so, this dark cloud comes over our family, and both my parents insisted, you need to go back to school. Just come back when you can between classes and all your other things. So I went home to Kansas City every other weekend. So I would do this super serious cancer thing one weekend and then go out and try to do the sorority thing the next weekend. It was so tough. I mean, it was hard enough to maintain all the image that I was supposed to and then throw this cancer thing on top. And remember, we don't talk about stuff in my family. So we were not talking about the fact that this was terminal and very, very serious.
A lot of sugarcoating going on.
Oh my gosh. I'd call it denial.
Exactly.
Exactly. So my mom was in and out of the hospital a lot because she had broken her hip. The cancer was already in her bones. And I did go to a sorority event one night. I was having a great time doing some shots of tequila. And all of a sudden, I just started sobbing and I couldn't stop. And they had to take me home. I was so embarrassed. And my roommate came with me and she said, "What is going on?" And I just said, "I think my mom is sicker than my parents are telling me." And she said, "Okay, we're going to call him tomorrow." And I did. I called my dad and he said, we think she probably has 2 years. I said, okay, total mindset shift. I got to figure out how to do the college party scene and the cancer scene. High achiever, I can do this. And I did it. I figured it out by about Thanksgiving time. Right before Thanksgiving, I finally went out with my sorority, had a great time. I didn't get sick. I didn't cry. It was fun. I'd been home in Kansas City the weekend before. Felt like I had this great balance and I was getting ready. It was a Saturday before Thanksgiving. I was getting ready to go to my boyfriend's formal and I get this call. "You got to come home." I'm like, wait, what? And I just kind of knew from my dad's voice. I said, "Is this it?" He said, "I think so." I know. It's like, wait. I said, "What's going on?" He said, "I want you to get here safely. I'll tell you when you get here." So I sent my boyfriend onto the formal. I said, "Let me go home and let me figure out what's going on." Get home. And turns out this is where, for years, the story that I told that went along with the family story is she was very sick with cancer, took a turn for the worst, and passed. And she, short and hard fight. Cancer took her too soon. But the truth was that went in to have her lungs drained and they gave her Demerol and she coded because she had way too much pain medicine in her system. And they had to use Narcan twice to bring her back. And she had been, without oxygen to her brain for a long time. So by the time they brought her back, she had suffered quite a bit of brain damage. And they told us, she still has time left, but she needs to spend it in a facility. You guys can no longer take care of her. So you have two choices. You can let her go to a facility or you can let her pass peacefully here in the hospital. And that was a really easy decision. There was going to be no quality of life for her.
Yeah.
So we made that decision, and my aunt felt like my dad had been drugging her. So she told the doctor, and they ran a tox screen. And turns out she had way too much in her system, and they started an investigation.
So,
Yeah, and I'm going to keep this pretty high level, but I got asked by the police, what was going on, and my answer, this is where I went wrong. I told the truth. I said, "I don't know. I was in St. Louis." And so I was excused, and another family member cornered me and said, "Wrong answer. You've got to get back in there and you've got to make sure you protect the family and you protect your father." And so I said, "But she had too much in her system." And this is what I was met with. If he goes to prison, which he will, because he was the only one giving her pain meds, you won't have a father. You won't have anyone paying for your school. You won't have health insurance. You won't have a home to come to. You're going to need to quit school, and I don't know where you're going to go or who you're going to live with. And so my whole nervous system went into fight or flight mode. And remember, I'm a fawner, so I complied. And I had to work through a tremendous amount of shame and guilt for going along with the story. But like, even still, my heart is just kind of pounding telling the story because the story I told for so long was she died of cancer. And I'm finally able to tell the real story and the truth. But it's still hard. It's still, there's pain that comes with it.
Yeah, of course.
We ended up somehow, this whole case gets dropped and there's no charges pressed. I don't know the details. I wasn't behind the door when the conversation happened. I think I know what happened, but I don't know for sure. Long story short, she passed away Monday morning. I got home Saturday night. She passed away Monday morning. And when I got back to my house from the hospital, this is where drinking completely changed for me. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and another aunt handed me a glass of wine, and she said, "Here, you need this." And I looked at my daddy and said, "Go ahead." So two things happened. One, the rules changed. I was allowed to drink underage in my home because of death. And two, I took that drink. Oh, I mean, pure relief.
Yeah. Drinking for the wrong reasons, technically, it's not for fun anymore, and you're drinking during the day, and it's justified and it's accepted. So there's so many reasons why you were gonna take that drink, but you weren't supposed to, but you still did, So it was just a whole different feeling.
Whole different feeling. It became like medicine. I was in pain and I felt better when I had that drink. And before that glass of wine was gone, she refilled it. And I had another drink and I was like, "Oh, this is even better." Woo! Okay. Okay. This day is getting a tiny bit better. And I drank till I passed out. And that's what I did that whole week is I used alcohol to get through and it was totally fine. I could drink whenever I wanted and nobody batted an eye. And it was Thanksgiving week and it was super tough because we weren't able to bury her until after Thanksgiving. So we had this long stretch.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving's still, kind of a tough holiday, but I'm bringing back fun and joy and play and honesty and nervous system regulation, so that's a beautiful thing. But my drinking forever changed that week, and it never really went back to just something that I did socially with friends.
And you were around 19, 20 at this time?
20,
20, yeah. Wow.
20 years old.
So when you went back to school, did your habits change when you went back to school, like after that?
So yes and no. A lot of times I didn't go out because I was so scared I was going to cry. And I was so embarrassed that one time I cried. So I kind of stayed in more than I had before. And I had to really practice being able to go out and follow my rules and not make a fool of myself. I did finally figure it out, but I would say the rest of college really wasn't very fun. So I ended up moving back to Kansas City. I was an education major and got a job in Kansas City. And I started dating Ben, who was the DD that first night I ever drank, essentially my drinking coach. I started dating him and we ended up getting married in 2006. So I moved back to Kansas City. I started teaching. I was dating Ben, and my drinking then I feel like became super normal. It was just on the weekends. No big deal, right? We drank with each other, we drank with our friends. It wasn't until I had my first son that things changed again with my drinking. And that was so unexpected for me. And for the longest time, I thought it was my motherhood, that's why my drinking really picked up. But really what happened is when I had him, all this emotion and feeling came flooding back to me because I had him in the same hospital where my mom died. So this whole story that I've been trying to cover up, here I have this baby, this beautiful baby boy, and I start having emotional flashbacks and anxiety and panic in the hospital. I have no idea what's going on. I have no language for it. I just know I feel horrible. And I feel like I'm having a complete out of control, out of body experience. And I just think, is this what it's like to have a baby? This is terrible. Why do women do this? And I was embarrassed and ashamed. What's wrong with me? This is supposed to be so joyful. And I'm kind of miserable. And the day I had him, family all came in and somebody brought champagne. And as soon as I had the drink in my system, I was like, oh, there we go. Okay, so it changed again. It's not just for loss, it's also for motherhood and hard transitions. And so I get home with this beautiful baby. I'm internally freaking out. not only with these symptoms, but I'm also thinking, what if I'm a mother like my mother? What if I'm like her? I don't want to do that to anybody ever. And so, but I can't talk about it. So I'm struggling to breastfeed this beautiful baby. And somebody says, just drink a beer every night. It'll help you with your milk production and you'll relax. I'm like, okay. Like, what?
Yeah, I've heard that before. I wasn't sure if it was an urban myth or what, but I have heard that before.
I'm going to go just from my personal experimentation. It didn't work, but I went with it. So I had a beer every single night for the first 10 months of his life. And my husband's such a gentleman. He had one with me. He's like, I don't want you drinking alone. So it very quietly came into our marriage and became a way that we bonded together and as parents. And so I ended up quitting teaching that year. And so this great structure that I had went away. I didn't have to get up early in the morning. I didn't have to go to bed early. My drinking picked up a little bit after that. I got to move on back to my wine, which is what I loved when I was done breastfeeding.
I'll be at this point, if you don't mind me.
I was 27. Yeah, 27. You know, kind of find my footing as a mom. I start to feel better. I don't have the stress of work and everything's, I'm like, okay, I'm getting my flow. Oh, here we go. And then I get pregnant again. I go through that pregnancy, and this time it was harder not to drink. And I didn't have the ritual with my husband, and I felt really disconnected from him. And so I end up having a little girl. And this time it's the same experience. I have all these symptoms in the hospital. I'm like, oh my gosh, labor and birth is horrible. I can't stand this.
Yeah.
What is wrong with me? And then all the thoughts I had about being a mother to my son were magnified being a mother to a daughter. I just thought, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. Again, what if I hurt her? I don't want to hurt her. And so I start drinking right away again. And this time I'm like, well, I've got 2 kids. I'm going to do 2 drinks a night. And my husband was traveling a lot for work. So I didn't need the beer that time. She nursed like a champ. I just had my 2 glasses of wine every night. Okay, I get through it. I finally find my footing again. And I'm like, okay, I got through that tough motherhood. I get pregnant again. My 3rd baby.
Back to back to back.
They're all 23 months apart. And that was a huge surprise. And my husband and I were very overwhelmed with these 2 kids already. He's the sole provider and life was just kind of crazy. And we were both really overwhelmed at the thought of having another kid. And so he's drinking, but I'm not, and I'm missing it. And we're not connecting. And we've got these 2 kids. We're exhausted. And I know what's going to happen when I have that baby this time. And I'm really scared. So I planned ahead. I drank in the hospital. I didn't even wait till I got home. My husband to bring some wine to the hospital and to bring some beers in case this baby struggled to nurse. So we had beer chilling in the sink in my hospital room, and we had wine, and I didn't think twice about it. And it was such a red flag. I did a post on this that was wildly successful. It was a huge hit. People really resonated with it. I wish at the time I had had the wherewithal to think, okay, this is a little out of control, but I justified it. I defended it. I just didn't want to feel any of what I felt when I had these babies. So I ended up 3 kids, 3 drinks. And I did that for 2.5 years. And it worked until it didn't. And I wouldn't go beyond the 3 drinks because I was so scared I was going to get sick. So I ended up essentially having like a huge meltdown. I was becoming suicidal, high anxiety, panic attacks, all this overwhelm, emotional flashbacks. And when it got to that suicidal ideation, my husband finally hit this wall and he said, you've got to go get some help. And I said, I've got to get some help. So I saw a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist said, your symptoms are so extreme. I want you to start on some Celexa, but I also want you to take Xanax. And I want you to take the Xanax 3 times a day for the next 2 months. He said, you cannot get addicted. So I took 1 milligram a day, 3 times a day for 2 months. And he said, just don't drink too much.
That's what I was prescribed to, 1 milligram 3 times a day. So as needed, technically. But yeah, I would still take them every.
Did you take it the 3 times?
Yeah, or sometimes I would not take it in the morning and I'd take like 2 at night to fall asleep, or I'd take 3 at a time while drinking to feel the effects more. So I was irresponsible about it after a while. So yeah.
Totally.
And do you feel like, just backtracking a tiny bit, do you feel like, just based on what you were saying about the 1 drink per child, 2 drinks, then 3, like, seems like everything in your life, you would, even if it was something like drinking, you kept it very structured and organized to a certain way, like almost like OCD type.
Totally.
Okay. All right. I was just trying to, so I'm sure that added on to like the pressure you put on yourself on a regular basis, I'm assuming.
Exactly.
Okay. So she put you on Xanax 3 times a day and then
Yeah. And I went home and I took the Celexa and then I took that first Xanax pill.
selects
Fine.
antidepressant.
Yeah. Took,
I think I took that before.
and that did not work for me. But also, when you're using it with alcohol, it's probably not going to work.
That's, yeah, all the antidepressants I tried before the one I'm on now, I'm like, never worked. But then they're like, you were drinking on it. So I was like, okay.
They never asked,
Yeah.
hey, how much do you drink? Or they never said, this is going to be so much more effective if you don't drink. It just wasn't even on the table.
Yeah. And I would lie and say, like, oh, yeah, I have a couple beers a week. I'm like having like 8 to 10 a night, So it's like, okay, I'm not going to tell that to the doctor, though.
I had a huge wine glass. So I could say I had one.
It's like a half a bottle. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, exactly.
So when I got home and I took that Xanax with the wine, it reminded me of that same feeling I got the day my mom died. It was like, oh, there's the relief I needed.
Hmm.
I just needed this too. So I ended up using that for 2.5 years. And when I did go back at the 2.5, or sorry, 2 months, the psychiatrist said, you can still take it twice a day. Just don't take it 3 times. If you take it 3 times, we probably need to up your other medication. So I never ran out. I could always space the Xanax so that I could take the pills and drink to try to get the effect that I needed. And I had to coordinate it around preschool and soccer practice and carpool and things like that, which is terrible.
And it was kind of turned into like a reward system, sort of like, okay, after all this is done, I can take the Xanax, drink that wine, and I'm back at my level.
Yeah. And if I had to be somewhere and go do something and I couldn't take that pill, just like you said, I would maybe take two later on because I was feeling all the anxiety and all of the symptoms. And I really was miserable. I mean, that Xanax quieted everything in my central nervous system, but it never healed anything.
Oh, it's temporary relief for sure.
Yes. So then I would take, that double dose with the wine, and that just, wow, I was a zombie. And people, after a while, could start to tell. My talking would be slower. Eventually, I would be slurring. I wouldn't make much sense. I'd pass out so much easier.
More blackouts or brownouts kind of thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes, there were times, my husband would be trying to get me up, and I was hard to rouse because I had so much in my system. It was absolutely terrifying. And I remember him saying, this doesn't seem right to me. This medication, I don't think this is okay.
Yeah.
And I said, the doctor said it's okay.
Was he referring mostly to the Xanax, or was he bringing up the drinking as well? Or was he was drinking too, it sounds like. So it wasn't a huge red flag for him, but it was like, oh, maybe it's the medication.
Medication.
Okay.
The medication was the biggest, but I would say the last 6 months of my drinking, so I was 36 years old. This was in 2017.
Yeah.
We were both pretty terrified. We weren't talking about it, but he was very scared by the amount I was drinking with the pills, and so was I. And I remember at the beginning of 2017, January 1st, I thought, New Year, new me. I got this. I'm going to get it together, and I'm not going to drink as much. And every single morning I would wake up and say, I'm not going to drink today. And every single day I drank. And sometimes I didn't even make it through the morning. I would drink in the morning because I was withdrawing. I was so addicted to the wine and to the Xanax and trying to shove all that trauma away that these symptoms would come up. And I'm like, I can't do this.
You were waking up feeling like nothing but anxiety, because I remember like when I would take Xanax at night and be drinking heavily on it, I just remember I'd wake up and my heart would be pounding. I'd feel shaky. I'd feel like, oh, I can't socialize or even associate with the world until I have that first drink. So it got to that point where it's like you had to hair of the dog that bit you kind of thing. Yeah. And that's when it really takes over your life.
It's so terrifying because you don't want to be doing that. And you can't not be doing that because it feels so bad physically that to not have it I thought I would die. I mean, that's what it felt like to me. And then I would take that pill and take the drink and I would feel better. So it was so confusing. And I feel like for people who don't understand addiction, like I've had so many people, and not always in a judgmental way, but how could you do that? How could you keep going? That couldn't have felt good. It's like, but it felt better. You hit a certain point, it feels so bad to stop. I mean, I really thought if I don't have these things in my system, I will die. And the truth is, I may.
Yeah, you can die from withdrawals from both of those, Xanax and alcohol, and they're both dangerous. And you can seize up, and it's frightening. So it's like, oh, okay. Well, not only do I want to get back on the level, but I also want to avoid ending up in the hospital. And the next thing you know, it just exponentially keeps getting worse.
Exactly. Over that last 6 months, I mean, the regret, the remorse, the shame, just I hated myself. I
Yeah.
couldn't believe I had gotten to this point. I was too scared to really tell anybody. And people were onto me. They knew something was going on, and people close to me definitely knew about the pills and the alcohol. And it ended up coming to, I hit my bottom. It was about a 3-week bottom, and we drove from Kansas City to Philadelphia for a family wedding. And the day of the wedding, I decided not to take the Xanax and alcohol because I didn't want to make a fool of myself. And people had said, don't drink too much.
Yeah.
And that was the worst thing I could have done. It's exactly what we just talked about. I felt like I was going to die. And so I was freaking out, and also the trauma that I had been running from. It's like all these lights turned on in my brain. So it was a physically and emotionally terrifying day. And I wreaked some havoc on that day. And I'm still so sorry for what happened. I can look back now with so much compassion and say, I was a very sick person at the time who needed help and didn't have it yet. I was not a bad person, trying to make a good day bad.
Can I ask what happened or how you got through it? Did you cave and start drinking to cope with all the feelings you were having, or did you tough through?
I did once, probably at 5 p.m. or whenever the bar opened. Actually, I had to get a drink before the bar opened. I had to ask for a drink because the withdrawal was so bad and I was mortified.
Yeah.
And they did give me a drink, and I don't know how many glasses of wine I drank, but it didn't do what wine and Xanax did. And I didn't have any pills with me. I mean, I set myself up for success to not have it, and I didn't have it. And it wasn't until I got back to the hotel room that night and finally had a Xanax in my system that I didn't feel like I was going to die. And like we said, the withdrawal symptoms from Xanax are horrific. I'm surprised I made it that long that day without it in my system, without having to go to the hospital.
Unbelievable. How obvious was it, like going up to the bar, feeling the withdrawal symptoms, pounding drinks back, were people noticing any change in your behavior?
I think it was more the desperation for the drink than, I mean, I feel like I probably had 8 or 9 glasses of wine, which is a lot. I'm a very petite person. And so it's just this drinking it like Gatorade, and still I felt crazy.
Yeah.
I think I looked crazy.
Were you noticeably intoxicated or like just not feeling it as well as you wanted to? So were you able to like maintain, good behavior at the wedding at least, or was it just
Exactly. But it wasn't the worst behavior I've ever had either. It was more, I was being overrun by this need for Xanax. And
Yeah.
so my choices and my behavior just didn't really make sense. And I was trying to like set some boundaries and do some things that night that needed to happen, but should have happened at a different time.
Yeah, I was so full-blown addicted to Xanax or so reliant on it that even when I tried to behave myself on certain nights where I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to risk blacking out, so I'm not going to take Xanax before I go out tonight or go to this family event, but I'm going to keep like a crutch one on me in my side pocket of my jeans just in case, and then of course, next thing you know, I'm in the bathroom chewing it, and then I'm like, I blacked out. So I'm actually impressed that you had the willpower to not even bring one with you.
It was a horrible idea.
Yeah.
I always had a side Xanax. I didn't go anywhere without one.
Exactly.
Right? You could keep it anywhere. Nobody even knows.
Is it clonazepam or lorazepam?
I don't remember how you say it either.
No, I know. So I'm impressed that you lasted that long without having one on you. So at the wedding, everything was fairly okay besides agitation and just the need for alcohol, which probably was a little noticeable to some people.
For sure. And close family, and the bride and the groom, they knew what was going on, and it took from and distracted from what should have been their day, which is at the time I was mortified and I was stunned. I thought, what's going on? What's wrong with me?
And even at a wedding, you think you were drawing that much attention to yourself, like as far as distracting from the bride and groom, like it was that intense?
From, I would say yes for them.
Oh,
Maybe not for the entire crowd, but for them for sure. Which was then hard for my husband. And our kids were there and my family was there. It was painful.
yeah. I was a best man in a wedding when I was in my mid 20s. And I remember I went out the night before and I told myself I wasn't gonna party hard, and I ended up doing Xanax, drinking cocaine, and I woke up the next day and I'm supposed to be at this wedding at like 1 p.m. or like some kind of like, decent hour, to get ready and stuff. I show up 2 hours late and I'm getting the anxiety's hitting me because I tell myself I'm not going to get drunk before I'm in a wedding, but the anxiety was just too much and I started pounding drinks. And then by the time I get to the wedding, I'm like halfway there, but I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to give a speech and all that. So I started taking Xanax. And next thing you know, it's like, I don't remember the rest of the wedding. I've looked at pictures, which I eventually want to post on my social media. My eyes are so gone, my face is like red and I just look like, and I regret it to this day. And I lost my friendship with that friend for about a year or two after that. We didn't even speak because I just, kind of, I screwed that whole thing up and I chose Xanax and alcohol to cope with that day as opposed to trying to at least manage myself. Or if I was smart and a good friend, I would have got my head on the right level before that day, But no, I chose to continue with doing what I was doing. So sorry to steer off, but I can completely relate. So
You said your eyes
yeah,
were just dead. I can look back at any picture and tell if I was on Xanax or not.
yeah, yeah. My
It's a
pupils
really
were just,
distinct look.
yeah, yeah.
They're not there.
No, no. I think on this episode, I'll bring up a picture of it now.
I hope you will. I hope you'll post more about it because it
Yeah,
is, I think it's more common than we talk about, but also it's really scary that
yeah.
I wish I knew more about the drug before I ever took it.
Exactly. So it's frightening, and it's crazy that they do give it out to people now. I mean, I understand there are people with severe generalized anxiety disorder, and I was one of those people for a long time, but I think a lot of it was due to alcohol. But so I see why they prescribe it, but I don't think they take enough account into how many people abuse it or use it for the wrong reasons, and it's a scary drug.
It's so highly addictive.
And yeah, so after the wedding, you went back to the hotel and took the Xanax, and then did you black out after that, or what happened?
I felt no, I felt normal.
Normal. That's the scary
Normal.
part is when it's normal after 10 drinks of wine and then a Xanax. It's like, oh, I don't feel wasted. I feel normal.
I feel normal. And that scared me so much. So again, I've got this resolve. Okay, I got to get it under control. But we did not go straight back to Kansas City. We went on to the Jersey Shore to have a family vacation with our family of 5. And I said, this is it. This is my last hurrah. Had fun, but was also terrified. I mean, it wasn't fun, but I let myself continue to drink. And on our way home, remember we drove wild. Oh my gosh. We were the Griswolds, going
Yeah.
from Kansas City to the East Coast. I actually call my husband Sparky because he's my Clark Griswold. So we drove by.
Love that movie.
Good. I mean,
Yeah.
we're Sparky and Ellen for sure.
Yeah.
And we joke, my youngest is Aunt Edna. He can be a real grump in the car.
Do you have a cousin Eddie in the family? Because he's the best.
Gosh, you know what? We haven't given anyone that yet, but we need to. I mean, our other 2 are totally Rusty and Audrey, and we've got Aunt Edna, and we have pictures of Henry, on his side, slumped over. He looks dead, and it's hysterical. He's just asleep in the car. But
My mother and I to this day, we call each other Clark just as a joke. And, she'll like offer me something. I'll be like, I'm doing just fine, Clark. It's just turned into an inside joke for like 30 years.
we always said, save the neck for me, Clark.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it's so good.
Classic movie.
Especially around Christmas time.
Yeah,
We're all about it.
exactly.
I love that you guys have that.
Yep.
The Griswolds, we travel back to Kansas City, but we stop in St. Louis. I wanted to show the kids my college campus. We'd never been. Okay. I mean, horrible. Every trauma box I'd taped closed opened up. And so when I came home, I knew I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. And I knew if I stopped, I was going to have to face the reality of what happened. And I both sounded horrid. I don't want to do either. And so I picked what I thought would be easier. I thought, I give up. I'm just going to keep going with the drugs and alcohol, and I'm just probably going to die. And so I crawled into bed and I drank and used Xanax for almost a full week. And I really didn't get out of bed. It was so scary and so sad. And
Do you think you were consuming? Because it's like looking back, back when like years prior to when like 3 drinks would do the trick, and now you're realizing you're drinking 10 and 10 plus, and it's still barely making you feel normal. I mean, was that starting to like hit you?
totally. And here's the thing, I don't know how much I was drinking because I was drinking boxed wine. I didn't want any evidence of how many glasses I was drinking, and I couldn't tell.
There's like 34 glasses in those boxes, so yeah.
Was going through the boxes so fast that scared me too, and I couldn't put them all in the trash because my husband was going to see, and he already knew things were bad. So I started hiding them in my closet. That way I didn't even have to go to the kitchen. I could just stay in my room and drink. And
Gosh, this is like exactly what you were mentioning on the message you sent me on Instagram. I'm like, I was flattening the boxes and putting them under my mattress. That's how bad I got. Just to like, and then all of a sudden, recycle day, I would have the stack and then just be like, okay, I'm gonna put them all in.
that's
Oh,
what I was trying to do.
finally, nice to meet somebody who can relate to me, but I feel bad for us as well.
I do too. When I listened to your story, I get out of here. He's a boxed wine guy.
I was grabbing the bag and pouring it into my mouth at my worst.
I didn't want to miss a drop, first of all. But when you're that desperate, it's like just drink from the bag.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's how I had no.
My shakes were so bad that it was hard to hold a glass after a while. So I had to like, if I could get the whatever the nozzle up to my mouth, and then just chug as much as I could, then that was my safe thing. So sad looking back at it. Sorry to keep interrupting, but
No.
it's crazy
Yeah.
talking to somebody who went through the box wine thing, because that's when it really gets bad.
It gets so bad. I was doing exactly what you said, which is, taking the empty boxes and flattening them, and I was going to put them out on recycle day. And I didn't get that far because I didn't end up flattening them well enough, and I put them in a bag up in and my husband and I had separate closets, but I put them up in this bag because I thought he's going to see them down low. Also, I wasn't thinking straight at all. And my husband is 6'7", and he saw me going into my closet so much. So he finally goes in there and he sees it. And the gig was up. That was his final straw, was me hiding it in the closet. Now, had I been hiding it otherwise and at other times, yes, but not like this. This was the worst of the worst. So I knew he'd seen it. I knew he was mad. I knew the gig was up. And before any more could go down, I called one of my best friends. He stormed out of our room. He said, "I'm too angry to talk to you," which was a good decision for him to make. And I called my friend Susie on FaceTime sobbing. And I said, "Oh, I'm going to choke up a little bit." I said, "I need help. I can't stop drinking, and I'm taking Xanax, and I can't stop." And Ben's so mad at me. And she didn't skip a beat. She came right over. She's a social worker. She got me out of bed. She showered me. She fed me. She got me back in bed. And then she went to talk to my husband, and she said she's got to go to medical detox. No, no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, this is very dangerous. And so he talked to her, and then he talked to a recovery consultant who helped him essentially come up with a one-man intervention. He didn't involve anybody else, but he came to me and he said, "If you take one more drink or pill, I'm going to take the kids and leave."
That's
Okay.
powerful.
And I knew he was serious. He was kind, but he was very firm. He didn't shame me. He didn't make me feel like a bad person. He just said, "I'm done."
One of the first things that goes through your head is the withdrawals I'm going to have to go through and the suffering if I don't have another. That would be the first thing that would go through my head at the time. Like, I wouldn't be, that my selfish side wouldn't be thinking of all those consequences. It would be thinking of like, how am I going to get through this difficult stage?
Right. Well, I ended up, it took me about 2 days to agree to go to medical detox because I really wanted to taper on my own.
Yeah.
This is not going to work, and it's a bad idea. But he gave me the space that I needed to come to the conclusion myself that I was willing to go to detox. And what happened was I ended up going to Target, and I'm technically on the Kansas side. So I went to the Target on the Missouri side, probably to get a drink, even though I was told not to take a drink. I was withdrawing. And I drove by this place called First Call. And I knew about this from another friend whose husband had been struggling. And I remember her saying, like, you can call them for anything with addiction. And so I called. And the first thing they said to me was, "We are so glad you called. It's so hard to reach out to us. Thank you for calling us." Everything changed. Oh my gosh. Okay. These people are so nice. And they gave me an option of where to go. And it was one of the places my husband suggested. So I said, yes, I'll go there. And I ended up at a place called Cottonwood Springs. And I said, I need two things before I go. I need one final drink and I need to say goodbye to my kids. And so I packed a bag and I had one huge glass of Kim Crawford. That was my favorite. Drank it like Gatorade, like I always did, said goodbye to my kids, and he took me to Cottonwood Springs. Now, hysterically, remember, I got to look good. So I put on what I think is a great outfit to go to medical detox. I put on this blue athletic top and this white tennis skirt, and I walk in, and it's the middle of summer. It's June 22nd, 2017, and they're doing my intake. They hand me what appears to be a kindergarten sack lunch of an Uncrustable chips and applesauce. What is this? Ate it, one of the best things I'd eaten in a long time, because turns out I really hadn't been eating. I start to withdraw. I'm cold. I'm like, oh my gosh, I did not dress warm enough. I asked if I could have a sweatshirt, and they said, we're going through your bag right now. Wait, what? Okay, they finally get me out of the intake. I still am asking for a sweatshirt. They won't give it to me because they're going through my bag. And I walk by, they're cutting all strings off my clothes. What in the world? And they said, we have patients that are a suicide risk. We can't have that. I thought, okay. I go into my room. There's no door. The bathroom's a half door. Everything gets locked up. I mean, I was scared.
Jeez.
So I turned to the lady and I said, excuse me, do I have a roommate? She said, well, you do. I said, could I get my own room? She said, no, that's not how
I
we
tried
operate
that
here.
too. Yeah.
Like, this is not a hotel. So I keep asking for my sweatshirt. They're not done with my bag. And finally they said, just, you're going to class. Go to class. I thought, what? What do you mean I'm going to class? So I go into this room and this guy comes up to me and he said, are you the new nurse? I said, no, I'm a client. He goes, did you just get off the courts? I said, no, I don't even play tennis. He said, why are you wearing that? And I just looked down and I started laughing. I said, I have no idea. I am a total fraud. Just started laughing. This guy was 20 years old. It
Yeah.
was his seventh time in detox. And he goes, you're with me. I said, okay. And he was my buddy the whole time. And when I told him that my husband wanted me to go to rehab, he said, oh, God, you are so lucky. My parents won't let me go again. I've been 5 times. I thought, what? This is not the chicken pox. What is this guy talking about? I thought we went once and then we were better.
Yeah.
He just laughed at me. He said, you are so clueless. And I was so clueless. He said, here's the thing. You can go home and you can try to do this yourself, but good luck with 3 kids in the summer. He said, plus you told me you and your husband drink all the time together. He goes, that's going to be tough. You go to treatment, you're going to get 30 days where you can't access alcohol or Xanax. He goes, I don't know what you're thinking. All this clarity came in. I said, okay, I'll do it. I called my husband. I said, I'll go to treatment. And I did. I ended up going to treatment in Colorado, in Estes Park at Harmony Recovery. And it was one of the best decisions I have ever.
Same. I did 45 days in a place in Idaho, and it was, haven't had a drink since the day I walked in. So it's life-saving, and I don't want to be the people that it takes more than once or 2 or 3 times. That's fine, but I just wanted it to be a one and done situation. And it sounds like you too.
I think I saw all these people come in both at detox and in rehab. And, it wasn't their first time. And I realized how serious it is in the first place, addiction, but then also how serious I needed to take my recovery. So I took all the energy and effort that I had been putting into drinking and using, and I thought, I'm going to put it straight into recovery. And that did not fail me. What happened too when I was at treatment was they took us on a little field trip up the mountain one day, which I was so irritated. I truly said to them, I am not paying $800 a day for you to take me up the mountain in this white van. I need to be learning what I need to do to stay sober. They're rolling their eyes at me. They're like, this lady, who does she think she is? We get to the top of the mountain, but I'm following directions. All of a sudden I look around and I just start crying. And this tech sits next to me. He does not interrupt my crying. He lets me cry. He puts his hand on my back when I finish and he goes, isn't it beautiful?
Huh. Oh,
I cannot believe what I've missed.
Amazing how many like people were kind of coming into your life right off the bat, like the 20-year-old guy just coming in and had the way he greeted you and like, just like bringing you some kind of comfort and warmth and also opening your eyes a little bit. And then this guy kind of comforting you and letting you get your emotions out. Like these are really powerful situations. So,
And he said to me, if you like this, there's more if you stay sober. And I turned to him and I said, are you sure? He said, well, I've been doing it 8 years. If it wasn't that good, I wouldn't still be doing it. I thought, okay, there's got to be something to this. So on the way down the mountain in that 14-passenger van, I doubled down. I said, okay, I will follow directions and I will do whatever they tell me to do.
yeah.
I don't ever want to go back to what I was doing before. This is too good. And that was at 2 weeks in. Get that horrible alcohol and Xanax combo out of my system, combined with loving and caring people who understood, and give me a beautiful experience of joy and peace without substances on board. That sold me. I thought, okay, let's roll. And he was right. I've been doing this for 8 years. It has gotten better. It's hard. I won't deny that piece of it. Early sobriety was very, very, very hard. It's the hardest thing I have ever done.
What was one of the first traumatic things that you started to like work on that was really tough to approach? Did you kind of go deep into your family dynamic growing up and why you had so much pressure on yourself, or what kind of stuff did you go into?
Waited about 2.5 years to get into that piece of it. The first place I started was working to have a relationship with my husband without alcohol between the two of us. Alcohol had become the third wheel of our marriage. And he came to the family weekend and he was so supportive and very proud. And when I got out of rehab, I wanted him to see me and he wanted me to see him. He held down the fort. He took care of our kids, kept our life going. We had 2 dogs at the time too. He had a full-time job. He crushed it. And we couldn't understand what the other person had been through. So we really had a hard time at the beginning. The other thing is he continued to drink, which was really hard.
Yeah.
And we had to get some help from a recovery consultant. And she was the one who was able to get him to see the importance of just taking a break from alcohol for a bit so that I could find my footing at home.
Yeah.
And she said to him, she's doing everything you asked her to do. I want you to do this for her because it's really hard for her to stay sober if you're drinking every day. So this isn't permanent. Just help her out. And he did. And after a month, he never went back to how he was drinking before. We just had to relearn. It was like junior high in our living room every night.
Yep. Relearn everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And we spent probably 2 full years together trying to figure out how to do marriage without alcohol. We'd take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And I left treatment. I essentially went to sober school. He came to a sober weekend. I left treatment and I was sprinting, ready to keep moving forward, and he was going at a much slower pace. It was important for me to keep going the pace I needed to go, but what I missed and didn't see was he was still jogging with me. He was just going a different pace. But a lot of fighting and a lot of frustration and a lot of miscommunication, but we stuck with it and we worked hard and, we just kept trying. We failed so much. So much, but we just didn't quit. And I think that's what saved us. We never quit.
You stayed together then.
Amazing. Yes. And I have to give him a huge amount of credit because I know a lot of significant others, they don't stay because it's really hard.
Yeah, it is. I had similar experience back when I was married. We're divorced now, but we were always on different trajectories on who was working on their sobriety and who wasn't. And we were just on it was very lopsided. I was not ready to get sober. She went to treatment, came back, and I continued to drink, and I'm guilty of that. And so I totally understand, like, if you're not on the same page, it's really hard to align,
It is. And I think today, hindsight, we can both look back and see we wanted the same thing. We just needed to each be on a path that worked for us individually to be able to eventually get on the same path together. And now I would say, he's the number one person on my dream team. He's my biggest fan and my biggest supporter, and he's incredible. He's incredible.
It's so cool that it worked out and you guys ended up jogging at the same pace eventually. You just had to work at it.
We did. We did. And, and it's a marathon. So
Yeah.
that's the thing neither of us expected either. We thought we'd come home and everything would be just fine. Well, no, pretty much everything needed to change.
A lot of work to do for sure. So how,
Family stuff at about 2.5 years, what happened was I felt better for a while, and then I started to feel worse, and it turns out it's because I was coming out of freeze. I'd been in freeze mode for decades because of the narcissism, and I ended up seeing a trauma therapist, and she helped me, again, with language. I have complex PTSD from growing up in a narcissistic household, so all these symptoms that I was using to soothe or using alcohol and Xanax to soothe, it was complex PTSD. So I have this name, I'm understanding the symptoms, and then I started to learn what I could do instead of reaching for Xanax and wine. I went to AA, I worked a great program, I did all the steps, that was helpful, but I needed body-based tools to help me feel better and safe. And that's where trauma therapy and somatic nervous system work made all the difference in the world. Now I feel really good. It's awesome, but I worry if I hadn't done that piece of it, I may have gone back to a drink or a drug because of the emotional flashbacks, because of the panic, because of the anxiety. I just didn't know what was going on. I didn't have language.
how long did you work with that therapist then to kind of get through that?
3 years.
3 years. Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot. It just so happened to start when COVID hit. And so I actually had the time and space to work on it. The other thing that happened because of COVID is I got space in some of these relationships where narcissistic dynamics were part of it. And what I came to realize is I had all these other relationships mirroring the relationships of, what I grew up in. And that space gave relief. And when I would go back into the relationship, I thought, oh, whoa, what's going on here?
Because you're so much more aware of everything now. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So the timing of that was almost perfect, just maybe you needed that 2.5 year delay. COVID hit and it was just like, all right, now I do have time to kind of reflect and actually focus on myself. And then it opens your eyes to all the situations that you're not seeing every day anymore.
I really needed that strong foundation of sobriety first so that I could have the capacity to do the trauma work, to deal with what happened, and to also build up the nervous system capacity to be in that ventral vagal green zone of feeling safe again. Because the truth of the matter is I felt safer for a long time in narcissistic dynamics because it's what I knew. It's how we said it felt normal to be with the alcohol and Xanax. Well, it felt normal to be in these dynamics. Today, normal is, totally sober from all substances and extremely low or no contact in narcissistic relationship dynamics.
Exactly. Yeah. All healthy relationships now.
Right. Which that's the work, it turns out, that I needed to do. And that's been a lot of deep work. And I've had to really pace myself again so that my nervous system can manage what comes up without feeling like I need that drug or drink to cope.
Yeah.
So sometimes I have these big revelations and then I've got to take a break.
Yeah. And it's a good example of like a lot of people getting out of treatment and stuff. They try to like fix and understand everything so soon, but at least you were able to like space out a lot of these things and work on them in a process, like an organized process, where you actually could work on things step by step as opposed to, okay, I'm sober. Let's address all the trauma I went through. It's like, I'm 18 months sober. There's still things that I'm putting off working on still. So, but for a reason. So I totally get it.
Fully support you in that. I think the longer you're sober too, you get your intuition back.
Yeah.
And you can tell, okay, I'm ready or not quite yet.
Yeah.
And I have so much compassion. I did this trauma informed coaching and leadership certification. It's just compassion led, and our brain and our bodies are always working for us, and they will alert us when it's time or when it's not time, and we can listen in again and we can respond, from a place of self-respect and love, knowing, hey, we've got a lifetime ahead of sobriety.
Yeah.
We don't have to do it all today. So
that was the last thing I want to address is here, like around what stage of your sobriety did you get into coaching and how did that start?
Just last year. So I ended up, I've shifted to Lighthouse Sobriety, which is Jen Hurst's sober community. I love it. It's online. It's all women. And she ran a program called Lighthouse Academy. And it was, I jumped in and said, yes, I'll try this. She was essentially teaching women what it looks and sounds like to be a sober coach. And it's, for me, I wanted just a bird's eye view. Is this something I would want to do? Or, hey, maybe it's not, but I'm not out too much if I try. So I did her program. It was 13 weeks. Week 1, I thought, this is it. I was a stay-at-home mom for 16 years. I get to use my background of teaching. It's super flexible, and I get to use my recovery experience to help other people too. I mean, it's just a win across the board. So before her program even finished, I had my first client. It was incredible. I just started posting on Instagram, and people found me, and a friend of a friend reached out and said, I'd love to work with you. I thought, oh my gosh, I think there's a huge need for people who, they want to go alcohol free, but they haven't hit the bottom that I have. They're ready to get off way sooner. And so, a group setting or a community isn't the first right step. Maybe just one-on-one coaching is. And that's the gap I'm hoping to fill is, for women who that's not where they are. They don't need detox treatment or a community.
They sense it becoming a problem if they continue on that path, though, and they're like, okay, I'm going to reach out to Allie, and maybe she can intervene in a more, slower, acceptable pace.
Exactly.
Okay.
And from there, I work with women to try to help put their dream team together. What else do you need? Do you need detox? Do you need treatment? Do you need a community? Do you need therapy? Do you need somatic work? Do you need couples therapy? But if you can get a dream team around you and your alcohol-free lifestyle, you've got the world in front of you and you've got a beautiful life waiting.
Yeah.
You've got to have a team of people supporting you. This is not a solo sport. This is really tough stuff. I don't wish it upon anybody to try to do sobriety solo.
So Sober Dream Team name and aspect is kind of an example of just having the right people surrounding you in your sobriety journey.
Yes.
Cool.
Listening to your story, I thought, okay, his mom's on his dream team.
Oh yeah, she went to my first meeting with me, when I'd gotten out of the hospital prior to going to treatment because I had a relapse, but she went to meetings with me and she got sober and stayed sober, and she didn't realize that she had a problem that she wanted to work on. I know she had issues with alcoholism, but not enough to want to quit during those days, but she ended up quitting with me and became a part of my dream team, and she's been sober longer than me now. So she just got 2 years, and I ended up having after 3 months of sobriety, a relapse. And then that's when I went to rehab 18 months ago, but she stuck with me. And so she's been a huge part of it. And we chair meetings together. I think you've probably seen my other posts with my 89-year-old friend, Mike, who is a big part of my recovery. I pick him up every day and drop him off, and we talk on the way to the meeting. So he's probably a part of my dream team too. And I have a guy that I meet up for coffee every Wednesday, and we talk about everything that's going on in the week. And he's not my sponsor, but he's just somebody that I meet every week, and we talk about healthy things, spirituality and how life's going, So now looking at the sober dream team part, I'm like, I do have one around me. Okay.
And see, it can often happen very organically.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
And then you can also choose to, hey, I want to expand my dream team. I want a bigger team than this.
Exactly. I like this.
My youngest son, so he was 12 at the time, huge basketball fan, said, I think I want to call this the Sober Dream Team. He did not skip a beat. He said, the 1992 Olympic basketball team has nothing on you, Mom.
Exactly. Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. I know that whole roster. Yeah.
And nobody could beat him. And that's my concept with sobriety. If you get the best of the best people in your corner,
unstoppable.
Will be unstoppable. The narcissism piece, I just got certified in narcissistic abuse too, because it's my story. I'm not a narcissistic abuse coach, but I can hold space for women in sobriety who have experienced narcissistic dynamics, and I can help them because you do have to tailor your sobriety a little bit differently in those relationships. And sometimes you can't go no contact. You do still have to be in contact. So it's a place. My youngest also keeps using the word niche incorrectly, but I keep telling him, no, my niche as a sober coach is to help women who've experienced, narcissistic dynamics as well. And it's from a very compassion-led, nervous system, body-based place.
Yeah. And you're right. Not everybody has the luxury of being able to space themselves from that narcissism right off the bat or at all sometimes, because they're in a relationship with somebody that they are, hoping can, adjust themselves or change. And narcissists are really hard to change, as you probably know. So it's like, it's not easy for everybody, but yeah.
No. And the truth is I wouldn't expect them to change. I would say if you want freedom and relief, when you get your agency and power back in the dynamic, you start doing differently. But step one is sobriety. If
Yeah.
you're under the influence with a narcissist, you've already lost power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's giving up even more control, but the more sober you get, I feel like the more empowered you start to feel, the more confidence you get back. And then you start to realize, I can actually separate myself from this person if I really want to, if I want to do what's best for me in my life and my future. So, yeah.
Exactly. If you can give up drugs and alcohol, you can let go of relationships that hurt you too. All of these things at the end of the day hurt us. And if we're going to make the bold and brave decision to be alcohol free, let's feel good.
Yeah, exactly. So if somebody approaches you, they can approach you for narcissistic abuse, your narcissistic abuse specialist, and they can approach you aligned with sobriety, or is it going to be separate?
I align them both. And
Okay.
part of that is because for a while, I was doing AA. I was doing trauma therapy. I was working on the narcissistic piece. It was so much work in three separate areas. And so I'm trying to incorporate it. We can work on all of it in a way. And I've created this SOS methodology where we stay sober, we orient to safety, and we do somatic exercises daily, a day at a time, a step at a time. We keep moving towards safety and freedom across the board. My big thing is clarity is the lifestyle. We want clarity mentally, and we want clarity in our relationships. Clarity is a hard place to be, but it's not any harder than being in the fog. It's actually easier.
Is the length of the process working with somebody just varies person to person?
It's 100% what they're up for. I do a minimum of 4 months because it's what I needed. It was very slow and steady. Overwhelm our nervous system or our brain in any way. We want to make it that, almost like medical detox. It was a more pleasurable experience to detox with meds and under the safe care of another person than solo. And it's the same concept. We want it to be, as easy and smooth as possible and not to feel too bad.
If somebody approaches you, what are like the initial questions you ask to kind of know that that's somebody you can work with?
The first is, are you open to being alcohol free? And a lot of women already know, yes, 100%, I'm there, I'm ready. And I usually say, that's awesome. And it's okay if you get data points. It's okay if you come in and have another drink again. You're still learning. You don't have to come in and work with me and never drink again. That soothes their nervous system right away, especially if the woman's a perfectionist. And then I do ask about narcissistic relationships, and almost always there's a yes. And I say, we wait on that. And there's a huge sigh of relief from people. They don't necessarily want to start there. So the biggest thing is, are you willing to just look at your relationship with alcohol?
Yeah.
And then we can go from there. But I do the alcohol relationship, then nervous system work. Then when they're ready and when truly they're leading the way with that, then we can look at the narcissism stuff.
Oh, okay. So there's a specific order as far as like comfort levels and everything. Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
And a huge piece of it is being able to build trust with each other.
Yeah.
There's so much trust lost in narcissistic relationships
Mm.
that they need to see that I am consistent, I'm safe, I'm
Yeah.
compassionate, I'm non-judgmental.
Yeah, people come in very apprehensive and reluctant to like trust everything that you're going to teach them and guide them in. And it's like, because, when you're a victim of any kind of abuse, emotional or physical, it's like you come in with your guard up. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
One of the things to learn is we don't trust people from day one moving forward. Trust
Yeah.
is earned and trust is built, and they practice it with me from day one.
That's great. No, that's really appreciate what you're doing. It's incredible. And you've been doing that for about a year. And are you working with women or men and women?
Just women. That feels best for right now.
Yeah, no, totally understand.
We'll never say, this is what I'm doing, always moving forward, because I really don't know. But right now, just women.
Okay, awesome. And then clarity is the lifestyle. What does that mean to you?
You know what? To me, it means I'm alcohol and drug free. I'm living honestly, and I'm in healthy relationships.
It's amazing. I love that. I'm starting to feel after 18 months, I feel like, I'm getting clarity slowly but surely. I'm not where I want to be 100% yet, but it's like I know that it's still early. I know there's still trauma that I haven't dealt with. I grew up with a little bit of narcissism in my household growing up, and just having this conversation today reminds me that I have a lot to address. So it's a good thing though, just knowing that the work I have to do will never stop, but at least progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And one of the biggest things that I can do for clients is truly just say, I believe you.
Yeah.
Because for so long, you're not believed about the experience, in narcissistic dynamics. And I believe you. It's a
you.
big deal.
It's nice to hear that.
And I believe you. It's like, oh, as soon as you said that,
I appreciate that, because it's nice to hear that, because you feel like you almost start to get in denial yourself sometimes when you don't feel like people actually trust and believe you when you say that you went through some certain types of trauma. Yeah.
it's a really big deal to be believed and to be seen and to be held safely.
Yeah, it is. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything. It was incredible hearing your story, and just the order you went in, the timeline, and the detail and everything really meant a lot. And it's honestly great for my listeners to be able to hear that. And also nice to know that I wasn't the only one hiding boxes of wine like that. And also, I think this is really good for listeners to know that they're not alone when it comes to being in narcissistic, abusive households, because a lot of people come out of those households in denial or trying to justify that other person's actions, and not actually addressing it, and just knowing they're not alone is huge too. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and I appreciate what you're doing to help others now as well, not just through sobriety, but through trauma and narcissistic abuse. And it's incredible what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate having you on. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Rock Bottom with Ryan. No bullshit, just recovery.